it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a scene card using the storybook The Ugly Duckling as inspiration. And for the images, I'll be using the new Swan Soiree. I'll also use Rub-a-Dub-Dub, Totally Awesome, and Critters from the Past. So I've stamped out all the images I'll be using on some Neenah Solar White cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I'm going to be coloring a lot of images for today's card because I really wanted it to be nice and full. They didn't all fit on this first panel, so I do have an additional panel with a few extras. I'm starting with this one here. I'm using the Mama Duck, and she's going to be a mallard. So I'm using E53, E55, and E57 for her. Starting with the E57 to lay in some shadows, and then I'm going to start blending out with the E55. And I'm going to save a lot of room for the E53, my highlight shade. So I'm creating this card for our current Lawn Fanatics challenge, which is to use a book, song, or movie as our inspiration. And since I just got this new Swan Soiree stamp set, I thought it would be the perfect story to do, The Little Ugly Duckling, which is a story that always really resonated deeply with me as a child. It really used to break my heart to read. But anyway, I wanted to take a page from the end of the story where the little gosling is reunited with his swan family. So that's what I'm going to be depicting today. I also decided to do the mother duck in some browns just to separate them visually from the swans. I really wanted the swans to look beautiful and pure and white. So I'll be doing the ducks, in some different colors. So I did do a double layer on the mother duck just to help that blend. And then I'm moving on to my little ducklings. The one in the bottom left corner, I actually didn't like the way he turned out. It was a different combination that I was trying to use and it didn't really work well. So I switched to Y11, Y13, and Y15 for the duckling, and then Y32, Y35, and Y38 for the beaks and feet of the mother and the baby ducklings. And I'm going to restamp that duckling that I didn't like the coloring of in the top right corner and just recolor that. So I'm going to just do the one on screen and then I'll do the additional ones off screen just because there are so many images to color and I don't want this to drag on too long so that you guys get bored. So I'm moving on now to the swans, starting with the mother swan. I'm laying in some shadows with the W1 and then I'm going to blend out with the W00, letting that fade off into the white areas. Like I said, I wanted her to be nice and soft. And I'm going to add the W3 in when I get to the goslings. I want those to be just a bit darker. I looked up pictures of swan goslings and they were kind of like a gray fuzzy color. So I think this combination is going to work well with the warm grays. So I used the W3 as the darkest and then pulled that toward the middle with the W1, and then I'll get nice and soft with that W00 as the highlight. I'll use W3 and W5 for the mama swan's beak, and then just W5 for the babies. And then for the eggshell, I was looking up colors for mallard eggs, and they could have this kind of green tone to them, which I thought was really pretty and different and something to give me a nice pop of something on the card. So I used G quadruple 0, G00, and G02 for that. And then for the dragonfly, I kept the G02 and added in the G03 and G05. I just thought it would be pretty to have that kind of cool green tone somewhere else on the card, but I just wanted to beef it up a little bit for the dragonfly. For the water lilies, I'm going to use RV02, RV04, and RV06. Started with the RV06 and just laid in a bit of shadow on the bottom of each of the little petals, and then blended out with the RV04. And then the RV02 is going to be my highlight shade. I noticed that it was getting a little bit glossy. It looked like it was about to drip. So I just grabbed a piece of scrap paper and scribbled off a little bit onto that to prevent me from getting any gloops and having some bleed out. And then I used the RV11 to add some rosy cheeks to all of the ducklings and the swans. And I'm pretty sure in the Ugly Duckling the baby's called a gosling, but according to the internet it's actually called a cygnet. So there's your little tip of the day. I'm moving on to my lily pads, and I'm using G20, G24, and G28. I'm just going to add a bit of that G28 to one side and then blend towards the center with the G24, and then add a little G20 to the outside edge for a highlight. And I will do a double layer to just intensify those colors. I'm also going to use just the G24 and G28 for the cattail grasses. And I'll use all three of those shades for the leaves. And by the way, the browns that I used for the log and the cattail heads were the same exact browns that I used for the mother mallard. So again, doing a double layer to just really get those colors to blend nicely, and then I'll trim all of the images out with their matching dies. For the focal panel, I've taken a piece of mermaid cardstock and cut into that using the ocean wave accents, and then trim that down with the outside in stitch rectangle stackables. So I'm going to pop that into my MISTI and stamp my sentiment with peacock ink. And I'm doing a combination sentiment. The word beautiful is from the Swan Soiree, and the your is from the Totally Awesome stamp set. I created my card base from another piece of mermaid cardstock, and I'm going to be stamping out some images from Swan Soiree in combination with a sentiment from Flirty Frames. So this is definitely a card that could be for any occasion, but especially for someone who's maybe been feeling a little bit down on themselves, just so that you can let them know that you think that they're beautiful on the inside and out. And who doesn't need to hear that every once in a while? I've trimmed out a piece of noble fir cardstock using the meadow borders, and I'm popping that up with foam tape just to have a little bit of lift there. I want this to be the bank in front of the lake, and I'm going to begin to adhere my images using some liquid glue. I'm going to start with the mother swan because the whole scene kind of centers around her and the baby that is the ugly duckling. So I'm going to slide her into one of those little wave accent cutouts, and then find the little cygnet, I guess I should say, and I'm going to add him kind of right overlapping her breast there, and just having him kind of looking up at her adoringly. I thought that just created a really cute image in the center of the card. And then the other little cygnets I'm going to add to the scene, just kind of surrounding as happens in that storybook at the end. So I'm going to have the other two little ones floating nearby or swimming nearby, and then I can begin to set the scene in the foreground. I'm going to add the log just for something to break up the color and just create a little bit more of a scene there. And then I'll have the mother duck over on the right. I'm going to have the duckling that's kind of stretching up, kind of looking over the log at what's going on in the water there. And then I'll add the other two ducklings as well, one in front of the mother and the other one over on the other side. And then in the center between them is where I thought I would do the little nest, or what's remaining of the nest. So I'm using those leaves from critters in the past, and also what would be the top of the egg in that Critters in the Past set. This is the piece that goes over top of the little dinosaur's head, and then the other little leaf is kind of just making up the bottom edge of that nest there. And now that I have all of my critters added, I can start to fill in the scene with some of the scene building images. I've got some lily pads and the cattails and the water lilies that I want to add. So I'm just going to spread those around and create a scene that looks nice and balanced. So I have the 2 single cattails on each end, and then the double cattail sort of in the middle, a little off more to the right, but sort of in the middle. And then I have a lily pad over on each side as well, and also one of the water lilies on each side. So the only image I have left is that dragonfly, which I added up toward the sentiment so that that could be the sky. And then I realized it kind of looked like, it didn't really look like it was fading into the sky, so I decided to add in a cloud from spring showers just to kind of help that look a little bit more like the water is just kind of blending seamlessly into that sky area. I'm going to take a piece of pattern paper from the Spring Fling collection. I just trimmed that down with my paper trimmer to fit the entire front of the card, so you can see a little bit of that pop of color on the outside edge. And then I've added some foam tape to the back of my focal panel. So I will line that up in the center of the card, make sure that there's even color showing from that pattern paper on all sides, and then press that down into place. And then to finish off the card, I'm just going to grab my crystal sickles as usual, and I'm going to add a little bit to the dragonfly's wings and also to the water lilies. I'll add a little bit to the egg, and then, or the egg shell, I should say, and then also to the cattail heads. And that is going to complete my card for today. I will lift that up to the camera so you can see all the sparkle and shine and all of that detail, and also give you another peek at the inside. So I would love to know down in the comments, what was a favorite childhood book of yours, or a book that really impacted your worldview? I just think it's such an interesting conversation piece. So if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. You can also ring that notification bell if you want to be sure that my videos always end up in your feed. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also be interested in, so you can click on either one of those to check them out. I hope you all have an absolutely amazing day. Bye-bye.